Hi, I'm Esther Avant. Rich and I recently had an awesome chat here on the podcast. I'd love for you to check out my podcast, To Your Health. With over 350 episodes, it's all about helping you stop starting over and finally follow through on your goals, starting with your health. You can find it wherever you're listening now.
Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Hartford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch
It's probably the least sexy part of the work, and I don't have the answer. It's okay. No. The truth is...
Today on Conversations with Rich Bennett, we're talking with Dr. Mark Hicks, a counselor, minister, and author of the transformative new book, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters and Healthy Relationships That Last. Dr. Hicks will break down how love is more than butterflies or chemistry. It's a skill that can be taught, practiced, and lived. He'll share the 5 components that make up lasting, healthy love, starting with one you might not expect. If you've ever struggled to rebuild after heartbreak, longed for deeper connection, or simply wanted your life and relationships to mean more, then this episode's for you. So grab your drink, whatever it be, coffee, water, tea, whatever, and sit back and listen because you're going to learn a lot. How you doing, Dr. Hicks? You like Dr. Hicks, Dr. Mark? Mark what?
Just Mark's fine with me.
Okay. All right. I knew that. I just wanted to test you.
Yeah, I'm a casual guy.
All right. I want to get right into a couple of things. So you've had quite a diverse background, from minister to missionary to counselor. What actually inspired you to write Learning Love now?
Well, there's really 3 paths that brought me to this place. One is that I am a counselor, as you said. I've been a professional therapist, and in counseling, almost everything we talk about and deal with has to do with relationships. Whether it's a relationship to ourselves, that's an important one, or how we deal with family dynamics, how we deal with work dynamics. It's all about relationships in our life. When we talk about ministry, theology, spirituality, we're talking about relationships. Relationships to ourselves, relationships to the community, relationships with each other, relationships with God. Then there's a third track, and that's my personal experience. I was actually raised in a healthy, happy family. I'm one of the few, actually. I think that's a very rare thing, and I'm grateful for it. That doesn't happen all the time. But I was raised in a healthy family. But even when you're raised in a healthy family, you don't always know what it takes to build healthy relationships. And early in my life, I ended up in a toxic first marriage. It was an absolute disaster. I still have the emotional scars for that one. And ended in divorce. And at that point in my life, I was really questioning, is love even real? Or is it just some fantasy that we stumble into sometimes? And some people get lucky and it works, but for a lot of people, it just doesn't, because there's a lot of people out there struggling with relationships. And I really wrestled with those questions. Didn't even fully realize it at the time, but looking back, I could see the kind of the questions I was wrestling with. At the time, it just felt like frustration in life, frustration in relationships. But over time, from my counseling background, from my theological background, and from that personal experience, I did come to the conclusion and the understanding that love really does exist. But the problem we have with it is we think it just happens. We think it's just going to come naturally. We get this from the rom-com movies and all that. I'm not a critic of those. I think they're fun, but it doesn't necessarily display real life. And we come from our family background, which in some cases, like me, it was healthy enough, but you don't really understand everything you need to know about the world because it worked. What worked for you and your family worked in your family. That's it. It doesn't work everywhere else. And as I said, I'm one of the lucky ones. A lot of people come from dysfunctional background, abusive backgrounds, toxic relationships as children, and you really don't know what a healthy relationship looks like And then we go out into the world and just expect people to find that special someone and get married, or go into an office and work with people seamlessly and go through life with friendships. And then we wonder, why doesn't that work? The reality is love needs to be learned. It is a learned skill set. And we need to understand what love is and how to live it out like we do other things in life. If we want to learn any other skill, we learn from people that have an understanding of it. We read books, we go to seminars, we do these things in order to get ready to do our job. We may go to a university or a trade school. We have continuing education, all these things that we do to prepare for the things of life. But then when it comes to love and marriage and relationships and friendships, we just wing it. And that's where we fall down. We've got to get to the place we understand love is a learned skill set.
Why do you think people resist the idea that love is a skill that we can learn?
I think it is that romanticized idea that it should just happen.
Yeah.
I think perhaps if you do come from a dysfunctional background, it may seem exhausting to think I've got to start from scratch and learn this. It's really not, but it's not as bad as it sounds. But it can feel like it's just exhausting to try to learn all the things you need to learn about love. It feels like there's a million moving parts and a lot of different things that are involved. And that's why I break everything down to the 5 components. There's 5 components of love. I want to make this easy to understand, conceptualize, and live out.
And speaking of the 5 components of love, you actually open the book by saying that grief is actually the first component of love, which is unexpected. So why start there?
It is a surprise to a lot of people, but that is a foundational element, because you're not going to get through life without scars. You're going to get hurt. It's just a fact of life. Now, that doesn't mean to be pessimistic. There's great things in life as well, but life is going to be hard sometimes, and people are going to hurt you. And you probably learned that as a child, coming from some families, that life is just difficult and relationships are difficult. Now, if we're not careful, what's going to happen is we're going to put up emotional barriers because we want to protect ourselves. We want to keep people at arm's length, take our time, push people out, keep people away, and put up those emotional walls in the idea of protecting ourselves. What we're actually doing is building our own emotional prison. We are keeping ourselves from connecting with other people. We have to have a comeback story. If we are going to be hurt, we have to have a way back to stay connected, to be open to relationships, and to have healthy ones. We have to have that comeback story. We have to have a way of living with the scars of life, overcoming the difficulties of life. And that process is grief. When we know how to grieve, when we know how to process the emotions of grief, that is our comeback story. That's the way back from the hard times to a place where we don't erase the things that happen. We can't undo the past, but we can go on to a good life. One of the things I often say is that some things in life are so painful, it's like it leaves a hole in our heart. But you can live a really good life with a hole in your heart. And that's what we have to understand. It's kind of like if we lost an arm in an industrial accident, you're never going to be the same. It's always going to be different. Life is never going to be the same. We can't grow that arm back. But with new skills, with help, you can have a comeback story and you can live a really good life without that arm. The same is true with emotional pain.
It's true, yeah.
We have that hole in our heart. We have that heartbreak. We have that breakup. We have that divorce. We have that dysfunctional family, whatever it might be. We're going to have that hole in our heart. But what we do through grief is learn to live a really good life with a hole in our heart. And that keeps us open to the idea of relationships. Grief is vital so that we don't close ourselves off before we even start.
All right. So what does healthy grief look like in real life?
There's a process of grief. We sometimes call it the stages of grief, which is a really bad name for it because it's not like stair steps that we go through. There's a process of emotion. And a lot of people know the stages of grief, of denial and anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But what I always say is that grief is really an individual process. Everyone goes through it differently. While there are things that we can understand psychologically about the emotions and the process of grief, it is a process. Everyone goes through it differently. And what I say is, make sure you get help. Get help you need. Because if you were going through a physical ailment, you would go to a doctor. If you had a toothache, you'd go to a dentist. If your car wasn't running right, you would go to a mechanic. You would call a plumber, you'd call a lawyer,
Right.
you'd call whoever you need to help you. Why would we do anything different when you have a broken heart? When you have emotional
That's
and
true.
mental distress that is going to disrupt and maybe destroy your life if you aren't able to deal with that, to overcome that dysfunctional family, to come back from a heartbreak, come back from the divorce, come back from the death of a loved one, something that is scarring our life, our emotional life. Get help for that. Find a counselor, find a therapist, find a coach, find someone who can help you through that individual process. There's lots of information out there about the stages of grief, which I prefer to call a process of grief, because, as I said, it doesn't go stair step. It's more of a back and forth through these areas, but it leads you to that place where life can be good again. Not the same, but life can be good. And we need help to do that, just like we would need help to heal physically from a major injury. Get the help you need.
Actually, let's talk emotion.
Yep.
You describe love as requiring emotional skill.
Yep.
Not just expression. So how can someone who's more emotionally closed off grow in this area?
Yeah, emotion is the second component of love, and that one does not surprise people. We understand that one. And yeah, for some people it's really easy. They have no problem expressing and understanding emotions, feeling comfortable with them. For other people, they are more closed off, more cerebral. It's more difficult, more introverted, and all that's fine. I don't want to criticize anybody's personality. You are who you are, and that's a good thing. But it is a skill to express that emotion. And so start small.
Yeah.
Start small. And the key is the people that you care about need to know you care about them. So tell them. And if that feels awkward, you don't even have to say I love you. There are some people that come from an abusive background where love was a loaded word, where it was used against you and things like that. If you just can't do that, okay, say I appreciate you, or just say a sincere thank you when somebody does something nice. Start small, but make sure you're doing something to make sure the people in your life know you care about them. Find ways of saying that and showing that. It's absolutely vital for relationships to have some kind of connection of emotion. Otherwise, it becomes a contract. It just becomes just a commitment. And there's nothing wrong with commitment. I know that's important too, and we'll get to that. But those that say, well, it's not about emotion, it's about commitment. Well, you're missing a really important component of what relationships really are, is that deep emotional bond that we have with people. And if that's difficult for you, start small. It's a learned skill set. You'll get more comfortable as you go. It has to do with your brain, because if you have trouble with that, it's because sometimes the brain is always on the lookout for things that can hurt us. It's not on the lookout for things that are good. And so we don't always have a natural way of expressing good things to people. We have a way of defending ourselves. Our brain instinctively knows how to defend itself. We don't always have an instinct about how to say things of appreciation. That's not an instinct, because we have to defend ourselves in order to survive. Our brain knows how to do that. We don't have to appreciate each other to survive. And so it's a learned skill. Practice it. And again, if it's really a big problem in your life, get help for it. There are ways to work your way through this, whatever is blocking that. Get help for it, and you can get to a place. You don't have to be overly emotional. You don't have to transform who you are, but just get to the place you can express emotion.
With the practicing on expressing it, because you're right, there are a lot of people, and to this day, I've met a lot of them that just, for some reason, they can't say I love you. But do you think that just looking in the mirror at yourself and saying that would help as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, the fourth component of love is loving ourselves. It is accepting of ourselves. And that is absolutely vital, that if we don't love ourselves, we are not going to be able to love other people. Brene Brown's written a lot about this, done a lot of research. Other people have as well. You can only love other people as much as you love yourself. That's the limit. And so, yes, you're absolutely right. If you're struggling to love other people, express emotion to other people, it very well may be because you have these internal things, this loathing of yourself. And when you do that, it's going to come across towards others. You're going to have a really tough time connecting. Learning to love yourself is vital because love is not a commodity like money. If you need money, you can go get a second job. You might be able to borrow from a friend, take out a loan. There's a lot of different ways you can get money. You can even steal money, but I don't recommend that one. But
don't do that.
Don't do that. But there's ways to get money. But love is organic. It grows within us. And so learning to love yourself first is absolutely vital. As I say, it's listed as the fourth component in my book of learning to love yourself so that you can love others. If you're feeling hindered in your connection to others, it could be a lot of things. It could have been about emotion and worried about how that's going to come across. But a lot of times it is that we just don't love ourselves. So we're struggling to love other people. The limit for your love for others is going to be how much you love yourself.
And while we're on acceptance, and then I want to go back because we missed the third component, which is what? Practicality.
That's practicality,
So for the acceptance component, how do we love people as they are without enabling harmful behavior?
That's a really good question. That actually does take us back to the practicality side because love does have a practical component. The third component is practicality. And within the discussion of practicality is boundaries. Boundaries are an important aspect. And that is a practical aspect. That is just how we live together well. Practicality is about living together well, and it can involve a lot of things. It could be how do we deal with money as a married couple? How do we make parenting decisions and household chore decisions? That's just how we live together well. It could be things like mental and emotional health, because things like depression and anxiety, they take a toll on us. They also take a toll on our relationships, and those are treatable conditions. And so,
also take a toll on the people around you.
They do. They take a lot of toll on our relationships.
Not just your significant other.
Right. On the job, in the community, at your church, at your club, whatever it might be. It takes a toll on the people around you as well as yourself, and those are treatable conditions. So it becomes a practical matter of relationships to treat that. It also deals with boundaries, because one of the things you have to have in order to have healthy relationships is you have to have room for them. And if your life is consumed with a dysfunctional, toxic, abusive relationship, you will have no room for a healthy one. And so one of the things I say clearly in the book, and it surprises some people, but some relationships have to end. And as a relationship coach, as a therapist, as a minister, people assume that I might say, oh, every relationship can be saved. Theoretically, if everyone practices these 5 components of love, if everybody studies what love is and how to practice it and wants to save a relationship, theoretically, yes. It's not reality. In the reality, there are abusive people out there. And the best thing that can happen to an abuser is to run out of people to abuse. And so it is not an act of vengeance. It is an act of love to set a boundary and say, I'm going to live in this healthy space. This is where I'm going to live my life, in this area of health and happiness and thriving. And if you want to live here with me, you're welcome, and we can be in a relationship. But if you want to be toxic and abusive, you are choosing to live outside that boundary. We're no longer in a relationship, not because I kicked you out, but because you choose to live outside the boundary I'm setting. And everybody has a right to do that. And it's a vital component of that practical aspect of how do we keep healthy relationships by keeping the unhealthy ones out.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the part about some relationships just have to end. And I do agree with that, because there are sometimes, not necessarily because of the other one being a narcissist or whatever, it's just some things happen. But sometimes when you end those relationships, you end up getting along better with the other one than when you were together.
It can happen. Yeah. I've seen people do that. And sometimes, relationships sometimes have to fit into a certain place in our life. And if we have gotten that out of whack, it doesn't mean that it's all or nothing, that we're going to be best friends or we're never going to see each other again. Sometimes you can have friends that are more distant, and they are good friends, and you value them and you love them, but they're not your best friend. You don't tell them everything, because you know that there's some issues there that you just can't tell them everything. But that doesn't mean you kick them out of your life and you never see them again. Some
Right.
people, they may have rushed into a marriage that they never should have been in to start with, and it was a terrible idea, and they're both good people, and they really do have a love for each other, but they really would have been better as friends, as colleagues, as neighbors. They never should have gotten married to begin with, but for whatever, emotional reason at the time they did. People make mistakes. And the scenario you're talking about, that maybe there are some people that can have a more distant relationship, but can't have one that is too close. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's not you're my best friend or you're my spouse or you're nothing. There are degrees of relationship, and that's fine.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
That's healthy.
Now, the fifth component, which I'm sure a lot of people get confused about, you close with passion.
Yes.
But you say it's more than just romance.
It is.
What do you mean by that?
It's a passion for life. It can certainly involve romance. If you're talking about marriage, then absolutely passion is part of it. But it's more than that. It's a passion for life.
Yeah.
Passion is that drive to just enjoy life and find what is good about it. Now, we know life is serious, and that's why practicality is the third component. And we know life is tragic at times, and that's why grief is the first component of love. We don't forget those things. But let's also not forget about passion, about enjoyment, going to work every day because you love what you do and you enjoy your coworkers, coming home every night and enjoying your family, not just clicking off a list of chores and doing homework and fixing dinner and mowing the yard or whatever we do, but actually enjoying your family, finding ways that we really bring that passion so that it is the wind in our sails, the fuel in our engine to live out those relationships in a happy way, not just doing all the healthy stuff, but be actually happy. We are meant to be happy in our relationships, and there's a key to it. There's a little trick here. It's learn to have fun.
Oh, thank you.
Learn to have fun. And that is also a learned skill set, because going back to my previous point, our brains will constantly look for the damage. They'll look for things that are going to hurt us, offend us, and we have to defend ourselves. That's what our brain is wired to do, to keep us alive, to keep us from being hurt, both physically and emotionally. We have to learn the other stuff. And so learn to look for the fun. Too many people have opportunities to do something fun and brush it aside because they've gotten too serious, or they have opportunities to really enjoy something, but they won't let themselves. Learn to have fun. Every day is not going to be fun. Every moment's not going to be fun. Every person in your life is not going to be fun. But some of them are. Some days are just going to be fun. Enjoy it so that you have that wind in your sails, that breeze that comes through and pushes you along in life. And there's so many people that get the first four basically right. They've been through tough times and they've grieved through it, maybe even gotten counseling to get through that. They've made strong emotional connections. They've lived life in a practical way. They've made good decisions in their life and lived together well. And they've even learned to love themselves and appreciate who they are and are loving other people. And then they look around and think, what's wrong? And what's very often wrong is they've bought into this society checklist of being told since you were very young, the way to live life is you got to get your education, get your job, find that special someone, get promoted, have kids, buy the house, all the stuff. Nothing wrong with any of that. But then we get to be 35, 40 years old. We've done all of that, and we think, is this it? Well, yeah, it is. It can be. Doesn't have to be. It could be a number of other scenarios. But it can be that. But what we forgot to do was enjoy it. We forgot to have fun doing it. We thought that if we just checked everything off the list and did all this stuff, that somehow we were magically going to be happy. No, we have to learn to be happy doing that stuff. And the trick is to learn to have fun. It is a learned skill set to learn to laugh. Some people have forgotten that one. We just don't do it anymore. Learn to laugh on purpose, have fun on purpose, make it a priority in your life, just like you would make your finances a priority, just like you need to make grief a priority, just like you need to make emotional bonds a priority. Make fun a priority. So if you're able to grieve the tough times of life, so you don't barricade yourself behind emotional walls, but you can connect, and you do have those emotional connections, you allow yourself to have emotional expression and connection. You live life in a practical way, making good decisions in your relationship so you live together well. You love yourself, first so that you can love others and you have that organic love pouring out of you towards other people, and you remember to have fun and have a passion for life, you can build relationships in every area of your life, from work to the community, to your home life, to your marriage. In every area, you use these 5 core components, you can build life of love.
I love the last one because, you're right. I do think a lot of people forget to have or forget to learn how to have fun.
Yeah.
And the whole time I just think back to when the kids were little.
Yeah.
And as parents, you would sit there and play games with them and everything, and you would have a blast. You would have fun doing it. And then as the kids got older, it's like the games went away.
Yeah.
Sit there, and I think of I was thinking of my neighbors because, both their kids have moved out, but a lot of times they'll just sit down and play cards with each other.
Yeah.
And have fun doing it, or sit out in their camper and just have a blast. They just love being around each other and having fun. I think of all the different things I love to do with my wife. I put I want to say almost like a bird sanctuary out.
Yeah.
Right? And she's taught me so much about birds and just watching them. My next step, I'm waiting for him to come in. I want to put a pollinating garden in the backyard.
Nice.
So yeah, because I have to thank her because before I didn't really care about nature. I was, as a Marine, I was always out in it, getting rid of it and all that. But to see the plants and all the different birds, the butterflies and everything, then you realize it's God's creation and how powerful it is and how it helps you emotionally.
Exactly.
And it's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's freeing. It's fun. It's liberating. And so many people just need to take a breath and relax and laugh together. And that alone, I think that is one of the most overlooked components of love. All of them are a struggle in some ways or another. All of them need work sometimes, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that we really have forgotten is how to have fun together, how to laugh together. And you just think when you think about times that you have done that, where you really just had a great time laughing with someone, you felt connected to them. Yeah. These are all interconnected. They're not separate, because if you laugh with somebody, you really have that fun time with them. You have an emotional connection. You have that builds that. It's not the only thing, but it's one of the things that builds that emotional connection, that second component of love. And so they're all kind of interconnected, that one helps the other.
You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back. I want to give a huge shout out to a key player behind the scenes of the show, Freedom Federal Credit Union. Running a podcast involves more than just microphones and stories. It requires solid financial management. And that's where Freedom Federal Credit Union comes in. They're not just a credit union. They're a community partner that I trust deeply. Their support helps us keep bringing you the stories you love episode after episode. And what really sets Freedom Federal Credit Union apart is their dedication to local businesses. They offer everything from business loans to incredible resources, ensuring companies like mine thrive. And it's all wrapped in top-notch customer service. So if you're a business owner looking for a financial institution that supports your goals and invests in our community, I can't recommend Freedom Federal Credit Union enough. Swing by their site at freedomfcu.org or give them a call at 1-800-440-4120. You also write candidly about how family dysfunction can pass down distorted ideas of love.
Absolutely.
How do we start unlearning that?
That's a tough one, because when we're children, we just accept whatever our family does as normal. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we have done in our society that I greatly object to is that we have made the phrase, "That's just the way I was raised," somehow the closing of an argument. That's not a reason.
No.
And if somebody says, "Why are you doing that?" "Well, that's just the way I was raised." "Why do you believe that?" "Well, it's just the way I was raised." And we just accept that in our society as, "Oh, well, okay, well, that's the end of the discussion." That is not a reason. If you ever use that phrase, catch yourself, because
Yes.
we have grown up thinking something is normal, and then if that's just the way we were raised, we think it's okay just to keep doing that. Always ask the question, were they right? Okay, that's the way I was raised. That's fine. But were they right? And it doesn't mean that we have to trash our family. It just means that no family's perfect. There should be some area you can look to in your family if you're reflecting on it and say, you know what? I love these folks, but on this one, they got it wrong. That's not a bad thing. That's not disparaging them. That's not hating them. That's not putting them down. It's just that we all make mistakes. And I can now do it different. I can make a different decision. I can do things differently and better. And that doesn't erase my heritage. It just means I'm building on it. I think it's so important that we get this concept across, because so many people are just repeating what they've always done in their families because it just feels natural. Again, I'll go back to the point I've made a couple of times now. Our brains work a certain way. And when we do something over and over, it builds neural pathways that feel normal. That doesn't mean it's right. It just feels normal to our brains because it's what we've done so many times. When we do something different, it feels very awkward. It's not because it's wrong. It's because our brains don't know how. Think about the first time you picked up a basketball, or the first time you tried to cook something in a kitchen, or any new skill you tried to learn. It's always awkward the first time. And so with everything, and it's true of this as well, when you try to do things different from your family in a different way, it's going to feel awkward. That doesn't make it wrong. It just means your brain is having to learn to build new neural pathways to do things differently. So if you come up from a family that the instinct and the go-to in every stressful situation was to yell and scream and throw things, that's going to feel normal. And you're going to feel normal when you do that. But when you understand, that's not really beneficial to my relationship, that's not helping my marriage to yell and scream at my spouse and throw things at them, that this is really doing damage, and you start doing things like, all right, let's sit down and talk about this. That's going to feel really awkward. It's going to feel hard. Yeah. And it's not because it's wrong. It's because your brain has to form new neural pathways to learn how to have conversations while you're stressed. You've never had stressed conversations before. You've had throwing things during stress before. And so building those new neural pathways will take time. It takes practice. Again, if that's a struggle, get help. There's ways to do this. And when we build those new neural pathways, then we're learning new skills that we can build on what our family taught us. We can go as far as they taught us, and then go better and
improve it.
We go better than our family. And if everyone just took a couple of extra steps, and I know for a fact this can happen, because one of the reasons I've had a great family life growing up, my dad had some struggles growing up. His dad was a really heavy drinker. He was a good guy when I was a kid. My grandpa quit drinking at some point in his life, and he was really good man when I was alive. But during my dad's growing up years, he was a heavy drinker, and he was kind of violent and not a good man. And my dad made a conscious decision as a young man, as a teenager. If I have kids, I'm going to raise them different than I was raised. And he did. He did. And it was a dramatic difference. He consciously worked at it. And I would say that couldn't have been easy, but he understood, I don't want to treat my kids the way I was treated. And as I said, my grandfather, I don't want to put him down because he's great to me, and he quit drinking, and God bless him. But he had some struggles early in his life, and my dad was the victim of that. And he made the conscious decision to change that. It can happen. But again, get help for that. You don't have to do that alone. You don't have to pick up your bootstraps. Get help and make the decisions to overcome that family dysfunction. It can be done. Lots of people have done it. It's just not easy, but it can be done because your brain has the capacity to build those new neural pathways and learn new skills.
Why do you think some people are afraid of seeking help?
I struggle with that question. There's a stigma, which is just ludicrous. It's just absurd in my mind. There will be a stigma. That's like having a stigma of going to the dentist. Why would there be a stigma of getting help for something that's hurting you? It's absurd. So we gotta just stop that. And I think there is in some capacity, if we're going back to our families, people say things like, well, my grandpa never went to a counselor and he was just fine. I have two responses to that. First, was he? I'm not so sure your grandpa was always fine. He probably had some issues doing that whole pick yourself up by your bootstraps thing that people did in the olden days. And the second thing is counseling didn't exist back then. He didn't have that option. And so let's not glorify somebody who didn't get counseling because it was not available to him. If it had been available, it'd been a good idea for him to go to. Everybody should be in counseling, in my view, because life is just hard. Not because everybody's crazy or any silly thing like that, but because life is hard. We're all going to struggle with things. We all have new things to learn. And if we're going to build healthy marriages, healthy families, love what we do for a living, build healthy communities and a better society, we need to be healthy, happy people. And that's going to take some doing.
Yeah.
And so get help for that. Everyone needs to be in counseling. I know not everyone can afford it, but not everybody can afford a dentist either. And that doesn't negate the need for a dentist. It just means that that's a different problem. But yeah, there are problems. There's hindrances for some people, and that needs to be addressed. But if you can at all, find a way to get counseling in your life, because get a coach, get a therapist, because life is just hard, and we all have things to learn. I've had a bad marriage. I'm now remarried. I'm very happy. I'm very lucky. And again, it's not perfect. I'm not going to claim perfection. We're all learning. These five components, I can teach them. I'm also still learning them. I'm still practicing them. It's always a practice. But the thing I've learned is I've had a bad marriage, and I've had a good marriage, and good is better. We need to get good relationships in our life. And if you are allowing yourself to be in bad relationships because you have some sort of stigma about counseling or some sort of ego thing where you don't want to ask for help, you are just condemning yourself to be in these unhealthy relationships. And good relationships are better. You're going to be healthier, happier, more thriving in every area if you build healthy relationships. And if enough people do this, we're going to be a better society. People say, what do we do about the world? What do we do about the nation? What do we do about the state of humanity? If we learn how to love each other in relationships, all the way down to our homes, our families, how we treat each other at work, how we treat each other at church, how we treat each other in the community, how we treat each other when we see people at the store, how we treat the stranger that we just greet there at the market. If we learn how to treat each other through these principles, through these components of love, we understand how to build relationships, then we change society. If you want to fix the world, it's about love, and it's a learned skill set. It's not some ethereal, if we all just have an emotional trip or something. It is a learned skill set, and if enough people learn it, we change the world.
All right, now I want to go a little deep here.
Okay.
Because this has been two questions, but I'll ask the first one, and this has been a pet peeve of mine. Why do you feel that some people have a hard problem loving themselves?
A lot of that does go back to family, because a lot of people were raised in toxic relationships, abusive relationships. A lot of families struggle with this, and very few people were raised in really, truly healthy families. You may have been raised in a family that worked for you, and as I was, but there are a lot of unhealthy things learned in childhood. And so we felt constantly fearful of punishment or the making mistakes. And I think society has been very hard on us, especially when we're young, for making mistakes. And you see almost a rebellion against that. They try to make mistakes when they're teenagers because it's like, I know I'm going to make them, so I'm just going to make them big. And a lot of that is because there is not this learning process. It is like, just get it right. And there is a lack of love in the world, a lack of support in the world, in the workplace and families. And so many people grow up with this idea that the way I'm going to have love is I'm going to act a certain way, be a certain way, look a certain way, and then people are going to love me. And that's going to validate me, and then I'm going to love myself. That sounds logical, but it doesn't work.
Right.
And so many people have bought into that so-called logic that they just keep trying that over and over. If I can just act differently this time, if I can just be this other way, if I can just get it right this time, people will love me, and that will validate me. It will never validate you. It is all about learning to love ourselves internally. And that comes from understanding that we have inherent value just as a human being, that we have inherent value, that yes, we have flaws, but those flaws are things we do. It's not who we are. And we can change what we do. We can change what we do. It's not easy sometimes. It takes some work, but we can change what we do. So we don't have to worry about the flaws, because once we realize we have a flaw, we can change it. Like I say, it's not easy. It's easier said than done, but we can still do it. That doesn't affect who we are. And we have equated so much about who we are to what we do. If we make a mistake, then we're a bad person. No, it means you're a good person who made a mistake. And that if we
learn from that mistake,
and we learn from that mistake in order to be a better person, that if we understand the inherent value of being human, the inherent value of the soul, of who we are as a person, of the creation that we are, that if we understand that, then we can understand that the things we do are things we can change. We can look, when people criticize us, we take it so seriously, but we don't have to. If we understand that they're criticizing something we did, we can evaluate that. Are they right or wrong? If they're right, okay, I can change that because I realize now they're right. I'll change what I did. That is a whole different attitude than feeling like they're attacking me personally. I think people struggle to love themselves because we just don't know the inherent value of who we are, of the value of just being human, of our human soul. And because of that, we are always struggling to get to a place we could love ourselves, to do enough, be enough, do something, to please enough people, to have enough evidence that we can love ourselves, and that never works.
You ready for this deep one?
I am.
Okay.
Give it to me.
I do believe this is a problem. It might be your next book. You never know.
Hey, I'm always open for that.
You always hear of people, not everybody. I think too many people got away from doing it, but people pray to God, they get mad at God, they thank God. Do you feel like, especially today, not enough people love God, and how can they learn to love God?
I love that question. I think it's a big problem. I think very often our spiritual life, our religious life, our whatever you want to call it, our relationship with God has become transactional. That if I do the right things, God will love me. Well, that's the same thing I just talked about. That if I can get enough people, if I can get enough people to love me, get enough people to appreciate me, if I can do all the stuff, get all the checklists, very often religion loses sight of love and becomes more about a checklist of behaviors to make sure we do certain things, act a certain way. And, acting a certain way and doing certain things isn't necessarily bad, but it's not the point. That if we have the right spirituality, we're going to do the right thing. If we are the right person, we will do the right thing. And doing the right thing doesn't make you the right person. And so this does get it. You are right. It's a very deep question. We could go on for a long time. And I probably do need to write a book about this. We need to avoid this transactional relationship with God, that God will love me if I do this. This is, if we get past that and we understand that we are a creation of God, and the Bible tells us that God is love, not just loving, not a characteristic. God is love. And then in Genesis, we're told we were created in the image of God, which means we are created in the image of love itself. If we begin to understand that, then we understand that we are the actual image of love itself. And that is valuable, that we are not created as something that needs fixing. Our human life needs to be addressed in some ways because of the mistakes we make in our own ignorance and all that. We know that. But who we are inherently as a creation of God is valuable in itself. We are an inherent creation of love itself. And when we start to understand that, it changes everything. But unfortunately, because of the evil in the world, because there is such bad things, there is an instinctive idea on leadership, whether it be church leadership, government, or anything else. How do we control the behaviors of the people? How do we get the people to act the way we want them to? And that can be everything from let's not do stuff like murder, which is a good idea, to, to send, you have political leanings that we need you to follow, or philosophies we need you to follow, and leadership will push that. And like I say, it runs in government, it runs in families, It runs
everywhere.
Everywhere. Everybody there's a leader, there is a tendency, there is a temptation to try to impose your will upon other people. Happens everywhere, and including the church. And so when we get into that, it all becomes transactional. If we understand we are an inherent creation of love itself, and we learn who we are, what we do is going to take care of itself. You're going to be a good person when you understand the inherent love that you actually are. One of the examples I give for this is, we put up speed limit signs because we want people to go a certain speed limit, particularly in a
residential place, especially.
Area. Yeah. Exactly. Because you could have a child run out in front of you, a dog run out in front of you. Things could happen. So we make people go 25 or 35 in these residential areas to make sure it's safe. Now, that's the reason we do that is because even good people, sometimes they're going to get in a hurry. They're not going to be conscientious. We're going to have just a brain lapse and not be thinking, and we're going to go too fast. So we have to put that law out there with consequences. However, if we are all conscientious people all the time, we are all caring and compassionate all the time, we get to a place where we understand the good of others, and we want that. We would want to be conscientious every second because we would never want to risk hurting a child. We just don't live with that kind of conscientiousness because our brains just go to other places sometimes, and that's why we have to have laws. But if we were conscientious all the time, we wouldn't need that speed limit sign. And that's the point of spirituality, is to get past the point of law and transaction and get to a place that we are such good people we don't need the laws.
I wish people would learn that. I mean, and I do believe that if you learn how to love God, you're going to learn how to love yourself even more, and then you're going to learn how to love other people, everybody around you. And I do think it is something that's missing. And I'll never forget this. I was on somebody's podcast, and one of the things I asked, because they asked me, what do you want to learn? I said, I want to learn, how do you talk to God and how do you listen to God? Because I do believe that a lot of people don't know how. When they pray, what are they doing? They're always asking for something. How many times do they thank him? Mark, and I'm not lying about this, it was shortly after that recording, and I always say a prayer when I wake up, I always say a prayer when I go to bed. That night when I went to bed, all I did is a simple prayer. All I did was tell God how I love him. And I started tearing up. It's almost as if I heard him say, I love you too. It's just, it's not weird. I want to say it's powerful.
It is powerful. And what you're describing there is really the teaching of Jesus. He was asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, the greatest commandment is to love God with all that you are, with everything. Because when we love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, as Jesus said, we're going to hear that back. We are going to hear that I love you back. We're going to hear that inherent, unconditional love, not based on what we do, but based on who we are as God's creation. And then he said the second one is to love your neighbor as yourself. That's the interesting part to me, because now with Brene Brown's research and others, we are learning that is the limit. Jesus, 2,000 years before the psychological research came out, said the most you can love your neighbor is as you love yourself. That's the limit. Jesus already knew the psychological limit. And so he said, love your neighbor as yourself. And as we love God first, we learn to love ourselves as God's creation. And then as we love ourselves, we can love our neighbor.
Something very important. Tell everybody where they can get the book, but also where they can get in touch with you, because you do speaking and coaching as well.
I do.
So there's a couple parts to this, first of all. And about purchasing the book, who does it help when they purchase the book?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. I have a partnership with an organization called The World's Greatest Experiment. Now, my book, as you've heard, is very practical. It is the 5 components of love that we live out as a learned skill set. But I also know there's a spiritual side of love. And The World's Greatest Experiment does an amazing thing. They go into third world countries, very poverty-stricken areas where children are out in the streets begging for money. And they take them in and they teach them that they are of value just because they are human and just because they have the capacity to love. It's not based on their begging. It's not based on their work. It's based on who they are as a person of love. And so they teach them meditation of love. And they get corporate sponsors to pay these children as they learn meditation. They meditate on love. They meditate on love to the world. They are paid for this to lift their families out of poverty. And so they are being taught that your inherent love is worth something. It's not just your backbreaking work that's worth something. It's your capacity to love that is worth something. And so they pay these children, lifting their families out of poverty and teaching them meditation and love. They'll use the word prayer in some cultures. They'll use the word meditation in other cultures. They try to be culturally sensitive about that. 15% of my proceeds of the book go to this organization. So when you are reading this book, there are going to be children around the world that are meditating love toward you. The leader of this organization told me, he said, we want to make your book the first book to live stream love as the reader reads it. And so you're going to be receiving meditations of love from children around the world as you read this very practical book on building love. And because part of the proceeds is going to this organization to lift these children out of poverty, you're also participating in the charitable aspects of love. So everything about this book is about every aspect of love. And you can get the book wherever books are sold. Go to your favorite bookstore. If they don't have it in stock, ask them for it. It's from Morgan James Publishing. Or go to my website, markahicks.com. I have easy links to purchase the book at markahicks.com. Make sure you get my middle initial in there. Hicks is Hicks. And so markahicks.com. And I do have a contact form there that people can reach me. I'm available for workshops, for speaking engagements, for coaching, or I'd just love to hear from your audience and let me know you heard me on the show. I'd love to hear from you.
And sign up for his newsletter as well.
Yes, I have a newsletter. There's a sign up there. Lots of stuff on the website. I also have a monologue podcast. I don't have guests on my podcast. I do about 15, 20 minutes of just teaching love. It's called the Learning Love.
Really?
Yeah, it's a Learning Love podcast. It's only about 2 or 3 months old now. I just started that. But I teach things about the book, about love and relationships in a monologue format. Like I say, it's 10, 15, 20 minutes at the most.
That's great, though.
And it's the Learning Love podcast with Dr. Mark A. Hicks. You can find it on any podcast platform or YouTube. You do have to put with Dr. Mark A. Hicks on it because there's so many names on there of love and learning and all of this. And since mine's new, it's harder to find if you just put Learning Love. But the Learning Love podcast with Dr. Mark A. Hicks, if you type in all of that, you'll find it in any podcast, Spotify, there's a YouTube channel, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like. So you can find more of this kind of insight on love on my podcast.
And they're, how long are the episodes?
Oh, just about 15 minutes or so, give or take.
Really?
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes. Because I don't do interviews.
I did not know that.
Yes, I don't do interviews or anything. I'm just talking about my insights that I teach in the book, kind of extrapolating from those and new things that I'm thinking about for my next book. And I share those on my podcast.
I'll definitely put the links, all the links you mentioned in the show notes. But if you don't mind, I'd also like to add your podcast to my podcast network.
I'd love that.
And I'll email you all that stuff because I think that's I normally ask people if they're going to start a podcast, but I don't need to ask you. Yeah, you already did.
It just started, like I say, it's about 2 or 3 months old. It's technically older than that. If you go back, you can find some older episodes that I did just as an amateur trying to put stuff up there. But about 3 months ago, I got really serious about it. I hired a producer. She's awesome. Abby Graves of Abby Graves Production does a great job for me, and she has made it into a professional broadcast, and I'm really happy with it. And like I say, it gives me a chance to share these kinds of insights on a regular basis.
All right, so those of you listening, make sure you go to the website to purchase the book, markahicks.com. After you read it, leave a full review, and then purchase more copies from the website for more people and pass them on because everybody can learn how to love, plain and simple. So, Mark, is there anything you would like to add before I get to my last question?
I always want to emphasize that if this seems overwhelming because you came from a dysfunctional background or you've been through a divorce or you're just at a bad spot, it is possible. It's possible for everybody. You can break this down into these 5 components and practice them. It's a lifelong practice. It's not about being perfect. It's about practicing. And so you can build those healthy relationships you want.
God, usually I could just end on that, but I already said I was going to ask you another question.
Oh, yeah, let's do another.
All right. What is the next big thing for Mark Hicks?
Well, I'm currently working on my second book. And so I hope to have that, to present that to Morgan James sometime this summer. That's an ambitious goal because I'm doing a lot of things now. So it's hard to find the time, as much time as I would like to write, but I hope to have that out sometime next year. So about the time, because my book, Learning Love, just came out in June. It's coming out in June. So hopefully about a year later, the second book will come out. And I am just in the earliest days of launching a new nonprofit organization that I'm calling the Learning Love Foundation. And what I hope to do from that is receive grant money and partnerships, whether it be nonprofit or corporate partners, where we can build workshops and seminars and bring in speakers. I'd love to be one of those speakers too, but bring in other speakers because there are a lot of good people out there talking about love, and we need to build as many platforms as possible. Build workshops, online events, online education. And I also have an idea for a documentary, but that's going to take a lot of money. So hopefully I can get a grant at some point to build a documentary about how to build healthy relationships. But that's in the earliest stages. It's not up and running yet. And I have filed the papers with the state of Tennessee where I live. And so it's just in the earliest days. But in the next few months, the Learning Love Foundation will be off the ground, a new nonprofit to spread this message of learning love.
So what I'm also hearing is you're going to be on a few more times again in the future.
I would love to be on your show anytime. Absolutely.
I love talking to people that have nonprofits and authors. I always invite back on when they have another book coming out. But yeah, I love this with the foundation that you're talking about starting. I think that's something that is definitely needed.
Well, and this is the very first time I have announced that publicly.
Oh wow!
I have close friends that don't even know about this yet because I literally just filed the papers with the state of Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. I still have some IRS papers I still have to fill out and submit. It's about a month or two away from being officially launched with all the government paperwork. But I have my board in place. But this is literally the first public announcement of the Learning Love Foundation.
Once you get everything set up and the website, send me the link. Well, you know what? We'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Because I want to help push that on my other website as well.
Awesome.
I just think that's great. Mark, I want to thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Those of you, again, listening, make sure you get the book, purchase more copies for other people, leave reviews, listen to his podcast, and you'll be able to find everything in the show notes, all the links and everything. Thanks a lot, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going. You know, it takes a lot to put a podcast together, and my sponsors help out a lot, but I also have some supporters that actually help me when it comes to the editing software, the hosting, and so forth. There's a lot that goes into putting this together. So I want to thank them. And if you can, please visit their websites, visit their businesses, support them however you can. So please visit the following: Real Life Prosthetics, cutting edge solutions, restoring ability since 2001. Go to reallifeprosthetics.com. Full Circle Boards. Nobody does charcuterie like Full Circle Boards. Visit them at fullcircleboards.com. Sincerely Sawyer Photography. Live in the moment. They'll capture it. Visit them at sincerelysawyer.com.